Hey everyone, and welcome to Awesome Riff of the Day number 3. Today we're going to have a look at the classic and yes, underappreciated and underrated riff to AC/DC's Riff Raff from 1978's Powerage album. Angus and Malcolm Young were absolute riff masters right from the get-go in 1975 when AC/DC produced their first two albums, High Voltage and TNT. If there's a more strictly riff-driven band in rock and roll history, I haven't heard them. Zeppelin, maybe, but even they mixed it up a bit now and again with some acoustic intros and the odd slow blues track or down-tempo track here and there. Not AC/DC. They've been balls to the wall riffage from the day those two lads from Australia strapped on a guitar. Writing and composing cool riffs is the bedrock and foundation for practically all of AC/DC's recorded output. And dozens of those riffs have become as famous and as well known as the songs that they're attached to. At least to us guitar players they have. It took a few years and 5 albums before AC/DC hit international success with 1979's Highway to Hell. And then, unfortunately, they were forced to reinvent themselves with Scotsman Brian Johnson after the untimely death of lead singer Bon Scott. That's when the catchy riffs that the band was so good at creating started getting into the ears of a much larger audience with the release of their mega album Back in Black in 1980. 80 or 81. And those ears included thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of teenage boys and girls, sitting in their bedrooms with a turntable and a guitar, basically me at 16. Though I was on to AC/DC a few years before Back in Black hit my own ears. And it was from this era of AC/DC that all those riffs we all know and love started filling our radio waves and blasting out of car stereos and exploding from bedroom windows of every teenage boy in the nation. Riffs like Highway to Hell and Hell's Bells and You Shook Me All Night Long and Back in Black and Thunderstruck and For Those About to Rock and on and on and on. However, one has to back it up a few years to find the real jewel in the crown of AC/DC riffs from their fourth and, in my opinion, best album, Powerage from 1978. It's also Keith Richards, Eddie Van Halen, Joe Perry, and Slash's favorite AC/DC album, so I'm not alone in this opinion. I'm sure many of you guys feel the same way. It's an album that should have broke the band big time, but actually flopped to some degree upon its release. At this point, AC/DC were a fairly unknown entity in the rock and roll world outside of their native Australia. They were starting to break ground in North America, but were still relegated to supporting act status and playing large club venues in North America and Europe. Of course, that would all change in a few short years once they found their footing on a worldwide stage with the success of Highway to Hell and then the mega success of Back in Black. But back in 1978, they released the somewhat transitional album Powerage, which at the time was, like I said previously, considered somewhat of a disappointment, both critically and sales-wise, selling less than the album before it and less than the album that followed it. So not a good sign. Some called it uneven and a step sideways or even backwards for the band at the time. I completely disagree with that analysis. This was my first exposure to AC/DC when I was 14 years old, and it has remained my favorite album of theirs since my youth. Despite no international hits or huge crowd favorites spawning from this album, the album is just loaded with fantastic riff-driven material, and the song with the greatest riff of them all is the song Riff Raff, a riff so bloody good that they put it in the title. Riff Raff stands out mostly for its extreme confidence, that of a band on the brink of superstardom. They knew it, it's just that the world didn't know it yet. And like I said, the song contains Powerage's best riff and one of Malcolm and Angus Young's and AC/DC's greatest riffs overall. A pretty much unimprovable spiral of notes and rhythms, which seems as much a force of logic as it is a guitar pattern. One has to wonder what went through Malcolm and Angus's mind at the time once they came up with this riff. Okay, we've got this absolutely killer riff. What are we going to do with it? Well, here's what they did with it. First, they allow nearly a minute of buildup before they even get to the riff. That's how good this riff is. It's worth waiting almost a minute before they'll even let you hear it. And that's not the only measure. It's so good, they know that you don't want to hear Bon Scott come in immediately with the vocals. So they run through the whole cycle of the riff again, letting it unspool to its whole length before Bon Scott even opens his mouth near the 2-minute mark. That's some supreme confidence in your riff. They knew this riff was golden and milked it for every moment. One of my top 5 AC/DC riffs that most others ignore for the more famous ones that came a few years later. Just a classic AC/DC riff and fun as hell to play. You want a riff that says AC/DC? This riff says AC/DC. So let's have a look at how to play it. All right, let's have a look at this classic AC/DC riff to Riff Raff from 1978's Powerage album. We're in standard tuning, and we're going to start off in this position right here with our index on the 4th fret of the D string and our pinky planted up here on the 7th fret of the G, where it is going to stay. So we're going to start off with 2 open A's, and the whole picking pattern is basically a down, up, down. A little triplet, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down. Down, up, and then down. So you're going to, on the open A, and this is all kind of staccato and loose. So we're going to start off on the A string, and then you're going to grab all 3 of those notes together. You're going to hit all 3 strings together. And then you're going to do it again by jumping up to the 5th fret of the D, and then you're just going to bounce that back and forth. And each time alternating little double hits on the open A. And then you're going to let that one ring out, and then you're going to do it again. And then the second time you're going to pause back there at the 4th fret, and then down for a power chord, little down, up, down action on an A power chord. And then you're going to run through that whole thing one more time. And then again. And then after you go down to that A power chord the second time, you're going to jump back into the riff almost immediately without letting it pause the way you did the first 2 times. So the first time is pause, 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 and then you jump right back in. And then the next 3 times you play it, you're kind of playing in the same little pattern, moving your index from 4 to 5, but with a slightly different rhythm, and you're going to play that 3 times. And then you're going to play that 3 times. So that's basically 4 to 5, 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 4, power. And then you're going to do that 3 times. And then the last time, you're just going to let it ring, and that's the big cymbal crash. And now we're into the main riff. So it starts off with 3 A power chords. And then the fourth time, just the open A. And then you're going to go up to 2 or 3 to 4 on the A. And then down to 2 to 4 on the D. And then you're going to go back up to 3 on the A and give it a slight pull. And then back to open A. And then up to 5 on the D, and then back to 3 on the A for another slight pull. And then back to A again. And then 3 more power chords. So that's the riff. And you're going to repeat that 6 times. And after the 6th time, you're going to go into D to G to D. And then again. And then back up to G and back down to D quickly. And then back into the riff. So. For 2 more passes. And then back into the D to G pattern again. And then we're into this. And that is, you're basically on the 4th of the A string and the 5th of the D. And you're hitting an open E. And after each slide, you're sliding that whole thing up from 4 on the A and 5 on the D, up to 5 on the A to 6 on the D. Every time you slide, you're hitting the open E. And then a little upstroke. For the last one, you're just hitting the one note, 5 to 6 on the D. And then you repeat it. And then back into the riff. For 4 more passes. And you just let that ring. And then this is when the singing comes in. So then you kind of just hit a open strings. And then hammer on the A power chord. And that's when Bon Scott starts singing. And then you grab the 7th fret on the G and the B and just give that a little bend and release and vibrato. So this is the verse when he starts singing. So this is beyond the riff. So I could play that all night. So that's how you play Riff Raff by AC/DC. I hope you enjoyed that awesome riff of the day, number 3. And we'll see you next time. Take care of yourselves.